Praise the Lord and good morning. We are preparing ourselves for Sunday school. I need for you to go to the website, wpbccleveland.com, and if you would download the morning lesson, which I will show to you momentarily, and we will take care of this business. Amen. Take care of this business. All right. Bible study guide for the week. We've downloaded it from the website, and we want to catch up at the more light on the text, and that is where we will begin our lesson for the day. It's been a blessed morning. We thank God for you joining us at this time, at this hour, for this time of Bible study. All right, I believe that we have arrived at the lesson, more light on the text, and we find ourselves here at 2 Samuel 7, 1 through 13. This passage deals with David's desire to build a house for God and God's response to David's proposal. God responded to David with a promise of perpetual kingship. This account in 2 Samuel is also repeated in 1 Chronicles 17. David thanks the Lord for this glorious promise and prayer and praises the immeasurable grace of God. He also prays for the fulfillment of this renewed promise of divine grace. We find ourselves at verse 7:1, and the word says, "And it came to pass when the king sat at his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all of his enemies." Look at how blessed this king is. We read it, it came to pass when the king sat in his house. What does that mean for him to say sat in the house? The Hebrew for sat is yashab, and primarily refers to sitting down. But specifically, it is used to speak of judges. Here, it anticipates the peace and quiet which the king is now experiencing. Until now, David probably lived in a tent, and now he has a place where he can remain settled and established. The place of habitation signals a sense of security. Within the next phrase is an important Hebrew word, nuach, or rest. Note here that the rest is a gift given of David from God. However, this rest was not also praise for the fulfillment of this renewed promise of divine peace. I want to remind somebody in this lesson right now, and I'm going to keep pressing you because I want you to get the fullness of the Word of God. Do not let yourself off the hook. This story is about you. Every single character in this story is you. It is one form of facet of your character which needs a certain discipline from one of these characters, or a reminder of how good God has been to you. Has God been good to you in such a way, thank you, that you were able to enjoy what God has already given you? Have you had the benefit, the opportunity to enjoy a car that God gave you, or to enjoy a house that God gave you? Have you had an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of your labor? If you have, then this text is talking to you. The king finds himself not only resting, but having a release from his enemies. He has a break today from his enemies. That's what this text is talking about. If you've been there, understand that this text is calling for you to reflect and appreciate the days where God has given you, not the days he's about to give you, but what he has already given you. I said this morning, I'll say it again, God doesn't need to give me or you anything else ever. God has given you everything that you need. The question becomes, do you know how to use it to its fullest? God has given us more of everything that we need. Everything that we can think of, he's given us more. He's given us more days. He's given us more time. He gives us more grace. He gives us more mercy. God is in the more business. Now, why is it that God gives us so much and we do so little? God gives us more and we seem to do less. Look at this generation now that we have. We have more technology than ever. No one should be unsaved. No one should be hungry. No one should be lost. No one should be uneducated. We have more, and it seems like we're doing even less to reach the masses. I don't understand, but when you don't do it God's way, it makes perfect sense. We're going back to the text, and we're at 7:1, and it came to pass when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from his enemies. We talked about this. We read that it came to pass. What does that mean? He asked the question that he sat in the house. Well, what does that mean? We looked at all of this. I'm going to go to the next verse. And the king said to Nathan the prophet, see now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth in curtains. It is as if David is remembering God. You know, life's so good, I might as well give a little bit of time to the church. Life's so good, I might as well do something for God. But the funny thing is that God has been taking care of David the whole time. And God didn't wait for times to get good to take care of David. God took care of David and his family and everything under his charge when times were tough, when the enemies were mounting. This text is not talking about Nathan or the prophet or David. This text is talking about you. I want you to consider as you read the word from now on that this is a great Bible or tool that you can use to make yourself spiritually more disciplined and stronger. Every single text that you look at will remind you of an area of your life where you need spiritual discipline. This story is not about David. It's about you. I'm telling you, it's about you. It's about you. It's always going to be about you. And the more you understand that, the more you become self-aware, the more you become conscious, the better your life, your quality of life will be. We want you to have the abundant life. David's life demonstration to you and to me, times of peace and rest. We should meditate on God's word and think of doing his work. It's a great thing. David was concerned that the ark of God remained in a tent and therefore wanted to build a permanent structure to house it. David thought of building a temple to honor God. It seemed inappropriate for the king to live in a palace while God's ark remained in a tent. David was grateful to God for his success. In spite of all his kingly glory, David sought to honor God. God resists the proud but gives grace to those who are humble. Because every good gift comes from God, grateful souls could never do enough for God, who has done everything for them. They cannot enjoy their comfortable accommodations while the church of God is in distress. When God blesses us in gratitude, we too find ways to bless God. David shares his revelation with the prophet Nathan. He shares a reality. He lives in a cedar house, yet the ark of God dwells in a curtain. But he does not tell Nathan of his real desire, and that is to construct a temple for God. In leadership, everyone needs the presence of a prophetic presence to check their actions, whether they be good or bad, which is the Hebrew word for nabi, translated means someone who can check your actions. One thing David seems to intuitively understand is that personal luxury cannot supersede the work of the Lord. Now, I probably should press this through to show you what the question is. But I want to take a minute to look at why. Well, I didn't give you the question. I should give you the question. Let's go back to the question, and then we can springboard. Verse 3, and Nathan said to the king, go and do all that is in thy heart. So Nathan basically pacifies the king and say, you want to build a temple, go ahead and build a temple. But building a temple is not something that you do for man. Building a temple is something you do for God. And so what we find out here is that, I'm skipping down past the summary, is that in verse 4 it came to pass that the word of the Lord came to Nathan. I told you building a temple is not for man, it's for God. And God has something he wanted to say. In fact, something he wanted to ask. I'm looking at verse 5 now, and I'm going to scroll you down to verse 5. And God has a question. God said, look, Nathan, hey, come here. Go tell my servant David I got something to say. And he didn't say something, he asked a question. He says, shalt thou build me a house for me to dwell in? And when you going to build my house? You've been blessed. Why haven't you built my house? That's the question. Now, that's the question. I want to now go over to Samuel, 2 Samuel, the 3rd chapter, because I want to give you an idea of what Samuel was doing that kept him from building the house. I mean, surely it must have been something that was of utmost importance, because God had blessed him mightily. And the way God blessed him, surely he made time for God. Remember, we're not talking about David, we're talking about you. Surely God has blessed, and the way God been blessing, we would make time for the Lord. Surely we would give our proper offering to God. Surely. Now, I am in the 3rd chapter of the 2nd letter of Samuel. Now, look, I'm trying to discover what exactly David was so preoccupied with that God could give him all that blessing, but he didn't have time to build God a house. Let me see. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But David grew stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. Well, here's one thing they were doing. It is clear that they were fighting. They were fighting. Can you conceive of a family that doesn't have time to manifest the will and the way of God because they are infighting? Does that happen in our families? You bet your bottom dollar it does. It's happening right now in some families. And we allow for infighting, wars, and division to hold us back from the will of God. Okay, all right, so they're fighting. Folk, family always fighting. What else are they doing? Oh, we get to the sons of David. Let me see. Sons were born to David and Abram. Look at this. His firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess. I want you to be clear that Ahinoam is a woman, right? and he has a second child, and he has a child named Chilaib by Abigail. And Abigail is another woman who is the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite. He has a third baby, Absalom, whose mama name is Maacah. Lord have mercy. Let me get this text up here. Oh, my text ain't doing right. You know what? I know what happens when I do that. Let me see if I can fix that. All right, let me see. There it is. I'm learning. Where are we at? Oh, we're in the no, not baby mamas, because these are either wives or concubines. Let me see. We're at his second, Abigail, his third, Absalom. Let me see, his fourth, Adonijah by Haggith, his fifth, the son of Abigail, and the sixth, look at this, I love it, by David's wife. He finally got the wife in there, Lord have mercy. These were born to David. Now, can anybody answer me the question, why did it take David so long to build the Lord's house? David was busy, okay? You all thought Bathsheba took up all his time. But no, David had a lot of time on his hands. Don't look at David, look at you. Look at the David in you. It's funny how when we get in these dating situations, the first thing that comes out of everybody's mouth, oh, I don't have nobody. I'm single. And they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. Number one, they can't find a man, the woman, and they single. Something's not adding up. David had a lot of relationships, and relationships take time. If I were to implement a theorem or a paradigm, I would suggest that each relationship that we enter into, even if it does not work out, but especially if you have children, you are looking at least 25 years. Let that sink in. David had, at this count, because we go to verse 4, chapter 4, he started making babies again. At this count, David had 6 times 20 of time, responsibility, provision, guidance, direction, etc., etc., etc. Should I ask the question, what was David doing that prevented him from doing the work of the Lord? May I ask the real question, what are you doing? What am I doing? What are we doing that distracts us and prevents us from doing the work of the Lord? I'm just trying to build a case here, and I think my case is pretty solid. Now, it goes on in that 3rd chapter. Now it was so while there was a war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner was threatening his hold on the house of Saul. Now look at this. Somebody ought to say woman problems. Verse 7 says, and Saul had a concubine. Do we need to read the rest of this story to know what happened? And Saul had a concubine. I'll read a little bit more. Whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And so Ishbosheth said to Abner, why have you gone into, look at this. I can't make this stuff up. Why have you gone into my father's concubine? I can't make this stuff up. Let's break it down. And Saul had a concubine. Saul was the king. The concubine's name was Rizpah, daughter of Ai. So Ishbosheth said to Abner, one of the sons, why have you gone into my father's concubine? Now you got sons who have different mamas who are having an argument about why one of the sons is sleeping with another one of their brother's mama and their daddy's concubine. Do we need, as the world turns, or Guiding Light, or Young and the Restless, do we need any of the, do we need a reality show? It's all right here. And you know that even though, even if you do not know the details, you know that nothing good comes after this conversation. There is division, there's infighting, there's jealousy, there's resentment. Should I ask the question again that God asked in the 7th chapter? Why have you not builded my house? Well, it ought to become clear. In verse 8, it says, I told you that nothing good happens. Then Abner became very angry. Y'all go ahead and read the rest. I'm going to let you get that for enjoyment, but it's a heck of a story. And it is inundated with death, division, and strife. And meanwhile, the assignment that God gave goes undone. I ask you to ask yourself, can we afford for the real assignment to continue to lay undone, unfinished? Will we continue to allow distractions, division, love, lust, love triangles, Will Smith, Jada Pinkett entanglements? Are we going to continue to let this nonsense keep us poor? I hope not. Remember, this story is not about Abner. It's about you. It's about you becoming angry in the midst of all of that mess. It's about you being a concubine. It's about you having a concubine. It's about you and all of your, the sons of your different and miscellaneous mothers. Woo, Lord. Nothing good. Nothing good. Let me get back to this text. I've meddled enough. Verse 5 tells him to go and ask him. In the midst of his asking, God runs down. He breaks it down. My God, God breaks it down. God says in the next few verses, he says, first of all, I have not complained. Secondly, I never asked for a house. Thirdly, I've been there for you. I've kept you protected. He goes down the list. From 6 to 8, there's a list. I have made your name great. I have kept your enemies from you. I have lifted your name up to be more famous than any other name. He goes down a laundry list of things that he has done for him, and yet they have not built a house for him. He moves on down to the 13th verse, which I'll go again. And when he moves down to the 13th verse, he says, look, I will establish my house, and I will establish my kingdom, and I will establish my temple. Look at this. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I need for you to know that that text is not talking about some building somewhere. That text is talking about you. You are the house. You are the temple. You are the kingdom. It's talking about you. And Paul says you are a temple. Remember the text where Jesus says, my house is called to be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. That is because in the house, they allow for selling and bartering and manipulation and deception. But I want you to see that the house is you. And if you allow for deception and manipulation and all of that stuff to occur in your house, in your temple, God's going to turn you out. How about that? God is going to turn your world inside out, upside down. And you see the evidence everywhere. You will not mock God by disrespecting his temple, and the temple is you. God will not let you mock the image of God by carrying the temple of God in a discreet, dishonorable, and unholy manner. God will not allow for you to blaspheme the Holy Spirit by disrespecting the temple of God. He will not. He will not. You can shake it. You can do whatever you want to, and you can think you're getting away with it. You are not getting away with it. You are not getting away with dishonoring the temple of God. I don't make the rules. You can come in here and beat me down all day long. Reverend, I can wear what I want to. I can blah, 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 blah. Yes, you can. But you will pay. You will pay for dishonoring God's temple. You will pay. Let me put it in another way. There's something that only your husband ought to see. Ooh-wee. And I did not say your baby daddy. And I did not say your boyfriend. There are some things that only your husband should see. You ought to save something for your husband. And what a sad circumstance when you finally do trick him into marrying you, because you're going to have to trick him. And then you all have that night, and he realizes, first of all, that he's not getting anything new. And second of all, both of y'all realize that all you're getting is somebody that a whole lot of other folk have had. Ooh-wee. You have nothing. You have nothing. And the only way that that can be even addressed is if you bring it to the Lord, if you concentrate on his temple and on his altar. But we don't think we need to do that. We think that's just the preacher talking. Well, take your offense to God then. If I have led you astray, if I have told you that being holy is right in God's sight, and that there's a level of metaphysical, esoteric, universal blessing available for you if you just do God's will and live and walk by the Spirit, if I have led you wrong with that advice, then take your offense to God and let God chastise you. And I am certain that you would prefer to get chastised by me, because I don't have a heaven nor a hell to put you in. I don't have a gatekeeper. I don't have a clock, but God does. God does. He's got a mercy seat and a judgment seat, and you better hope to God that when you go up there running your mouth with your profane, shameless, disrespectful, dishonorable, unholy mouth, that he'll be sitting on the mercy seat rather than the judgment seat, because you don't want judgment. Or let me say this, you don't want any more judgment. Ooh, Lord. So he shall build a house. The house is going to be built. The house is going to be built. Now, part of what I am going to slide into at 11 o'clock is the fact that this text says the house shall be built. It's going to happen, with or without you. Hopefully with you. But it's going to happen. God's will shall be done. Now, what do you plan to do about that? Are you going to be one of those that says, I am determined that the church is wrong, the Bible is wrong, God is wrong, and I am going to change the truth into my truth? There are people out there like that. God don't change. Sorry. If it does change, it's not God. When's the last time you saw the sun change direction? Guess who made the sun? God did. God ain't changing the sun for you. Now, there's a record, I believe it was Hezekiah, where he prayed and God moved the sun back 10 degrees. You need to read your Bible. You probably hadn't heard that before. But the fact of the matter is, God can do whatever God wants to do. That's the difference between God and all these other fakers and shakers out here. God is in control. God is in absolute control. But he also is the originator of absolute love. Now, once God puts stuff in motion, here's what happens. It grows. Once he puts it in motion, it grows. Go back to the first two. All you need, I say this all the time, I'll say it again. All you need out of the Bible is the first two chapters, Genesis 1 and 2. That's all you need. Everything else after that is a repeat. All you need. Okay, I'll include 1 through 4. How about that? Make some folk feel good. But if you study and memorize and look at the patterns and look at the messages that God is giving you in terms of economic prosperity right in the first 4 chapters, in terms of spiritual prosperity right there in the first 4 chapters, in terms of health and strength and healing, protection, God gives it all to you right there in the first couple chapters. God even gives you an understanding of heaven in the first 4 chapters of Genesis. He put them in a garden called paradise, where they were not intended to die unless they truly wanted to, and they did. So, even heaven is in the first couple of chapters of Genesis. Now, how do we explain all of the, I'm going to call it, things that are out of control in this world? How do we explain that? Well, let me tell you what God's plan for that was. He made a man, and he gave him a very short job description. Subdue and have dominion. Because I have put it in place, but if you read the story says, but there was no man to till the ground. Which means that whatever God puts in place, it's going to grow. But he would prefer that it would grow in decency and in order and not grow unchecked. And he needs man for that. Subdue and have dominion. He doesn't say, man, grow the garden. That's not man's job. He says, manage the garden. Prune the garden. Be a vine dresser. Be a husbandman. Now, if there is no husbandman, no vine dresser, what happens to all the stuff that's growing? Well, as me and Brother Lee figured out this morning, it grows wild and unchecked, just like our children, our teenagers, our neighbors, our boys, our girls, they're growing unchecked. Go to the barbershop. They don't get haircuts no more. They get trimmed. They get it zip, 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 line up. Don't touch the rest. In fact, they'll get a brush or sponge and scrub it up and make it really look wild and unchecked. And they call that a style. You've got men running around with hair down to their behinds, looking like they're growing a tree out of their head. They've got more shake and twist and curl and twist and what do you call it, bob and weave than the girls. Explain to me how the women are wearing wigs and the men have long natural hair. Explain that to me. Did I miss something? Maybe I did. If there is no strong man, the weeds will go unchecked. If there is no strong man, you may even go through the motions, but it is not my design. It is God's design. If I am in error, I will take credit for the mistake. But there is something about being an eagle that only an eagle can teach. A chicken does not teach an eagle how to fly. There's something about being a man that a man, I'm talking about a man, I'm not talking about a boy. Boys can't teach men, at least not in the traditional sense. But there's something about how God made men, real men, that as they move to maturity, they have a lesson and a perspective to teach and give to younger men that nobody else can give them. And I will go on this limb without any hesitation. It takes a strong black man to teach a strong black man how to be a strong black man. There is no one who knows the struggle or the challenges of what it means to be a real black man in these times. Black women are victims too, but they're not men. They have their own story to tell, and quietly as is kept, the women have just as much work to do with the girls. So why spend so much time on the boys? When the girls grow up, they need somebody to mate, and when the boys grow up, they need somebody to mate. So why do women spend so much time trying to figure out how to be a man or how to raise a man when there are women out here, girls out here, who are clueless? Cardi B, I think I saw somebody named Saweetie. I'm just trying to think of names of these popular people. I heard a song where the girl referred to the color of her vagina and the color of her anus. And she sang that song. I don't have nothing to say to that. I don't have a response for that, but somebody is singing those songs, and she's getting paid to sing those songs. And I think she just got pregnant, which means we have just introduced another bastard child to a bastard culture of people. Did he say bastard? Yeah. I know you call them baby mamas and they're bastards. And you're a bastard maker with a bastard lifestyle and a bastard way of thinking and a bastard economy and a bastard culture and a bastard intellect, and God has not made one single bastard. Well, now he gives us life. Oh, that's grace. All right, don't blame it on God. But when all hell breaks loose and you have refused to do it God's way, you refuse to come to the altar, you refuse to honor God, he's coming for you. He's coming for you. You think Deion Sanders coming? God's coming. Deion Sanders can come on. He ain't got nothing. But when God comes, he's coming. He's coming. The tabernacle will be established. It will. The kingdom will be established. And it's going to require your input. I truly believe, all of us probably have, and I'm going to stop here, all of us have probably had some encounter with the text where God, or he says, some of you all go to the left on Judgment Day and some of you go to the right. Lord, when was I hungry? When was I thirsty? When was I? And then he says, well, when you did it to the least of these, you did it unto me. It's like, oh, wow. Wow. That sucks. But there's a price to pay. And I often wonder about that scenario and what God is trying to tell us. I know God is trying to tell us, look, correct it now so that you don't have to be corrected later. That's what God is trying to tell us. But I often think of that and I wonder about those people who are going to show up with an excuse. They're going to show up with a lot of good excuses. Ooh, man. A lot of good excuses. I was once in a layover at Orlando Airport. I remember Orlando Airport because I am not a fan of Orlando Airport. Primarily because they know that it's one of those airports that people are going to be there after 11 p.m. trying to connect flights from out of the country, and they shut everything down at 10 o'clock. And that doesn't make any sense, especially being that you know that people are going to be trapped in the airport. You can't leave the airport, and all they have is a couple vending machines, which are usually somewhere far. And it seems like they should have corrected that a long time ago. I do understand that people have to work, which means people have to be away from their families in order to keep those places open. But there is a thing called third shift. I've heard of it. It's a thing. It's a thing. But either way, Orlando shuts down early. Maybe it's 11. But when the Starbucks closes, and I've watched this a few times, people will come up with the most ingenious reasons why they need a cup of coffee. Oh my gosh. It's like you would think their life depended on this caramel macchiato or whatever the case may be. And they cry. They want to call the manager. They want to bargain. They want to pay extra. And they need it. Oh my God. I mean, it is amazing the excuses they come up for why they couldn't get there in time to make this coffee. Now, all of that is a situation that's created by what I call a lack of customer service. The airport should do something about that. Not necessarily Starbucks, but the airport could do something about that, I think. give them some incentive, something to stay open. But the excuses are amazing. I imagine that when Judgment Day comes, folks are going to come with some excuses, man. They're going to come with some whoppers. And the same thing is happening in this text in 2 Samuel, the 7th chapter. God is saying, why haven't you built my temple? Why haven't you made me a priority? I made you a priority. Why didn't you make me a priority? And hey, make God a priority. Learn the books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, all that. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Learn them. My partner came by our school. We had a K-8 school when my kids were growing up. My partner came by and he said, well, what's the big deal about this school? Why is this school different from other schools? I said, we start with God here. I said, all my students know the books of the Bible. My daughter happened to be upstairs. And he said, all the students know all the books of the Bible. I said, yes, they do. Okay, well, your daughter know the book? I said, yes, she does. And, Faith, she's a little braggadocio anyway. And he said, you know the books of the Bible? She said, yeah. He said, okay, give them to me. Faith say, which ones you want? You want the Old Testament or the New Testament? Blew him away, all right? Blew him away. He wasn't even ready for that. She said, look, whatever you need, I got for you. Learn the books of the Bible, please. Learn how to pray. You'll know how to pray when you can teach somebody how to pray. These are the kinds of things that will improve your life, your quality of life, will keep you from being anxious, worried, etc., etc., etc. There's a process. There's some things I want to talk today about related to 7 and related to the 3 in 1 and the consciousness of God, the superconscious of God, of the intellect of God, the mind of God. You may say, well, Reverend, where you're getting all this stuff from? I'm trying to get better. I've been pastoring 38 years, and I'm still squeezing as much juice as I can out of the lemon. Because that's what it takes. That's what the job takes. Every day God is trying to show, I don't know everything. Therefore, every day God is trying to show me more so that I can do this job of winning souls for him better. And it's a whole lot easier for the doctor, if you will, if the patient takes the medicine and does the exercise and eats right. It's a whole lot different than the patient that doesn't do anything. Be a good patient, be a good child of God, and all those kinds of things. I want you to join us at 11 o'clock for our 11 o'clock teaching, which I already know is I want to share those 7 things. I need for you to think about that creature in Isaiah, which has all the eyes and the wings cross his belly, and the wings he uses to fly. And I want you to realize that that creature is you. It's you. It's you. And we need to take a spiritual look at who we are so that we can be prepared to build the temple that God is talking about. Some of us are going to run out and raise millions of dollars to build a building, and that's not even what God is talking about. You can spend no dollars and build the building that God is talking about, and he needs that building. In Jesus Christ's name, we have the victory.